Hello and welcome to the News9 Plus show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform, News9 Plus. Pakistan is a land of contradictions. It has the world's sixth largest nuclear arsenal, but it needs bailouts from the International Monetary Fund to survive. It is also the epicenter of terrorism. It hosts 150 banned terror groups and periodically embarks on counter-terrorism operations against terrorists it doesn't like. This is the classic good terrorists versus bad terrorists paradigm. Now, on the 22nd of June, Pakistan's Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif announced his country was launching yet another terrorist operation, yet another counter-terrorist operation. Azam-e-Istekam, meaning the resolve of durable stability. Now, this is Pakistan's 19th such operation over the last 2 decades. We're asking 5 big questions today. Question number 1, can Pakistan fight 3 fronts? Afghanistan, India, and the bad terrorists within. Question number 2, why does China want Pakistan to act against bad terrorists? Question number 3, does the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor or the CPEC have a future? Question number 4, General Asim Munir, the most powerful man in Pakistan today, his term ends in 2025. Will he stay on or continue to fight the bad terrorists? And finally, question number 5, will there be a border war between the Taliban in Afghanistan and Pakistan? Joining me to discuss this today are Mr. Avinash Monani, former DGP, Sikkim Police, a long-time Pakistan watcher, and my colleague Aditya Raj Kaul. Gentlemen, welcome to the News9 Plus show. Mr. Monani, I want to start by asking you, this new counter-terrorism operation, Pakistan embarks on one every few years. There have been almost 20 such operations over the last 2 decades at roughly the rate of one every year. Why is this operation different from the previous ones? That the fact that China is now in the picture has added something extra to this particular operation?
Look, this is the first time that any operation is being launched to satisfy the demand of Chinese leadership. It's not only, as you rightly said, that Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif and Army Chief Asim Munir visited China, but the demand from China are very clear, that were clearly articulated by a follow-up delegation that visited Pakistan a few days later, in which was headed by international relationship minister of Chinese Communist Party and a member of the Central Committee of the party, Liu Chao. So that man bring out 2 issues that he says are the crucial for Pakistan's stability in all respects. Number 1 is the unity among the political parties. All should be united on how to take Pakistan ahead. Number 2, he said, the internal security situation. There are 2 major challenges that Pakistan faces. Asim Munir had successfully organized the presence of Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf delegation in that meeting. But once that meeting was over, the Chinese delegation left. The Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf delegation says that we are not part of this this new operation that Asim Munir is launching. And it can only come once we have a proper briefing in the parliament. And no apex committee headed by Shahbaz Sharif can take a decision without parliament being involved into it. Basically, it is chickening out of the Asim Munir's project of keeping Chinese in good humor so that the CPEC investment comes. The problem with Pakistan is that it is running out of the foreign exchange reserves. Yes. What it wanted from Chinese delegation, China visit was that its loans should be deferred or loans should be rescheduled so that Pakistan doesn't have to pay the interest and the loan repayment. But what Chinese in turn offered was CPEC2. They said we are willing to invest more money so that your balance of payment situation shores up. You are better placed. But for that, you have to improve your law and order situation and also bring a unity among the political parties. This is where the issue right now rests. So, will it be successful? Yes, I think like previous operations, it will also have a ballooning effect. You more press the balloon on the Pakistan side, it will
Yes.
go, the people will cross over to Afghanistan. And the moment you reduce the pressure, you can't maintain your continuous presence in Northwest Frontier Province or Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Baluchistan. So at some point of time, you have to reduce the presence. Once you reduce the presence, they will again come in back, irrespective of the fact that almost 90% of the border is fenced with Afghanistan. So it won't be successful in that terms. Yes, it can give a temporary reprieve in terms of number of incidents probably going down.
A temporary reprieve. But Aditya, you're looking at Pakistan today that's basically fighting on three fronts. You have a Afghanistan front where they seem to have angered the Taliban, their former proteges. You have the India front, which they have reactivated now with Jammu, the terror attacks that we've seen there in Jammu, an area which didn't see a lot of Pakistan terrorist activity. And finally, this internal security situation, which they have now launched, Azam-e-Istekam. What are the challenges before Asim Munir, apart from these three fronts that he's fighting? How is he balancing this whole thing?
You know, firstly, there's nothing new. This has been happening for over 20 years, Sandeep. We've observed this. You know, every military operation is given a new name by a new army chief or a ISI chief. This is Istikam, a durable, you know, peace or stability that they want. And in the past, another similarity has been that it has been done to convince the foreign powers.
Yes.
In the past, mostly US or the Western powers.
It was the United States, and
this
now
time
it's
China and the IMF.
Really
to reprieve them of the loans.
Yes.
There are major, large chunk investments that are pending for the second round of funding of the CPEC.
Yes.
So for that as well, to convince the Chinese, because there was a warning, in fact, a repeated warning that came in not just in internal meetings, but more lately in a public meeting, in which the political parties' representatives were told by the head of the CPC's international wing that one, we require security, we require that you challenge and neutralize the threat. Second, you have a political stability in Pakistan. Third, you create a business environment which is friendly towards investors who are losing patience, the Chinese investors who are really losing patience. And finally, also have a CPEC which is media friendly. So this really requires a lot of rigorous activity by the Pakistani deep state to have some perhaps front page headlines which are positive to CPEC and the Chinese interests in Pakistan. But as I said, this has been happening for a very long time. This is almost like, you know, the same plan reinvented in some way. But as you mentioned in your question, Sandeep, that my priority or my understanding is that the TTP is a possible major challenge, which is difficult to confront. On the India front, I'm not surprised because there's been a ceasefire underway for more than 3 years. I personally do not see a surge, but I do see a tactical shift, a change from Kashmir towards south of the Pir Panjal, towards, you know, even Kathua and the international border. That is something that the Indian government, the intelligence agencies and the security will have to work out. But TTP and Afghanistan is a possible major challenge for Pakistan to handle, because in the last year itself, in 700 attacks, there have been more than 1,000 killings. The TTP has warned that these killings will intensify. Every single day, there are perhaps lone wolf attacks that are happening in Pakistan, where people have been gunned down south of Waziristan, the FATA area. And the TTP warns that this will only intensify. And we've seen in the past, the Sharifs have not been always on the same page with the Pakistan army. So to create a business-friendly environment is something that, you know, Sharifs would want. They have that kind of a bent of mind. But to work in the same page as Asim Munir and Rawalpindi would be a major challenge.
It's a major challenge, and in fact, I think now their priorities have expanded. Earlier, it was only the security. The Pakistan military only handled the security side of things. Now they have to handle the economy as well. So that's a big challenge indeed for General Munir. But Mr. Monani, you know, this China-Pakistan economic corridor, when it came up, it was meant to be this solution for all of Pakistan's economic worries over a decade ago. They said it would actually, give a strong steel economic backbone to Pakistan. It would revive their economy. A decade later, has it met any of these original objectives of what it had set out to do, this $40 billion backbone that they were talking of? Today, it's like, Chinese engineers being targeted as they were in March, and of course the Chinese are worried. But has it delivered on its initial promise?
Sandeep, let us be very clear. This was not intended, but it was made out that it is for the benefit of the Pakistanis.
Right.
It was basically intended for supplying energy requirements to the western side of the Chinese mainland. So it was a fast way to move the energy from Gwadar port to Xinjiang and beyond that, those areas. So they didn't have anything in the mind that it will help in the economic development of Pakistan. That was not the case. Inside that that is why the problem occurs. Because the people in Baluchistan, people in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, they say that what did we get out of CPEC? Tell us.
Right.
Nothing. The major agitation in Gwadar was because the Chinese trawlers were picking up all the livestock, fisheries livestock, and transporting it to the mainland China.
Right.
Even the fishermen were not catching a single fish there in the nearby. Then you have made a bund for the smooth movement of the ships. Now, because of that, last year we had floods in Gwadar. And the temporary tenements or small kacha places, they got all demolished because of that. So this is not a development that the Baluchistan people and the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa people had asked for. Neither has it benefited. Otherwise, this Pakistan would not have been in that turmoil. It was basically to serve strategic, economic, and those interests of China, so that China could have easy access from the Gulf for its energy requirement. And that is why it has not been successful. CPEC has not been successful in Pakistan. But the problem with the China is that this CPEC is the first flagship program of BRI.
Yes.
Now, if this fails, how does China attract the other countries to join BRI? So that is the biggest issue that China is facing. And the problem that China underestimated in Pakistan was that it will face resistance from the Baloch separatists. They thought that the resistance would come from the Islamist groups in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa or maybe Gilgit-Baltistan and those areas. But it is getting resistance from, by and large, I would call it secular Baloch separatists. That had not been factored into by China. The whole CPEC passes through largely from Khyber Pakhtunkhwa to Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and then Baluchistan. And there it faces the resistance.
Right. There it faces resistance. And Aditya, this is a story that you've covered very closely over the last 2 years. Baluchistan, Bangladesh 2.0, that series on News9 Plus. What does it look like now, the future of the CPAC? As Mr. Monani pointed out, it's a very bleak prognosis for this, but the Chinese will still go at it because it is Xi Jinping's project. It's the crown jewel of the Belt and Road Initiative. Will the Chinese focus on the CPAC outlast the insurgencies on the ground, the Baloch separatists, the TTP attacking it?
See, one thing is very clear, Sandeep, that the CPEC is certainly not going by the plan of Beijing when they started almost a decade ago.
Right.
The kind of attacks that they've faced, the kind of resistance that has been there, and of course the economic returns haven't really been there the way they had really thought. They have to pump in a lot of money at the cost of not seeing any possible returns really. So this is a strategic maneuvering that the Chinese are bound to do and continue as of now. But as I said, that the people of Balochistan are certainly not with it. Daily, I've been receiving statements from the Baloch rebel groups who say that we have attacked this point, that point, actually targeting the frontier corps, possible elements of the Pakistani military and the deep state in that entire area. In these last 2 years and 2.5 years itself, we have seen the massive attacks, in fact, the maximum attacks taking place against the Pakistani military. So things are not hunky-dory. Of course, I'm not stating that in the next perhaps a decade or so there will be freedom for the Baloch people. It's not realistic. But continuous attacks, continuous unsafe environment for Chinese engineers. Look at the level of attacks that have happened against the Chinese.
In March, there was that suicide attack.
Absolutely.
Against
and
the Chinese
this is also
engineers.
as a result of the Taliban really coming in Afghanistan, because Pakistan has been confronting the Taliban regime in Afghanistan that these are people who are coming from across the border, doing the attack, doing the recce, and then leaving. So this is putting the Afghanistan-Pakistan relations in turmoil as well. And certainly the Afghanistan, and of course the Taliban has nothing to lose in this. There have been talks at the border near the Durand line to no avail. There hasn't been any kind of consensus. And you've seen the kind of firing that's been underway. Unprecedented in many ways.
Unprecedented, and you have the Afghan Taliban with their own proxies, the Pakistan Taliban, Mr. Morani, which brings me to the man at the center of it all, General Asim Munir. Now his time runs out end of next year, 2025. He has a little over a year left as army chief. Do you believe, studying this general, very unusual among the recent army chiefs that we've had, he's not as high profile as Rahil Sharif or even Bajwa, General Bajwa. Very quiet guy, flies below the radar, but super ambitious and focused in what he does. What do you think is the future for General Munir? Would he stay on in power as Pakistan Army Chief? Because Pakistan Army Chiefs believe they are God's gift to the country and they anoint themselves with tenures. Do you see him as continuing beyond 2025, or is it going to be too much for him to handle?
Look, if given a chance, Asim Munir will continue till eternity. So it's not that, this is true of the Indian bureaucracy also. You see that one extension after another, another after another. Who is going away? Nobody is going away. So that is true of Asim Munir also. Given the chance, he will take 3 years more. Like Bajwa after 6 years was still eyeing for another year or another 2 years tenure. So for him also the same issue, same things. Humans are same, whether it is Indians or Pakistanis, they are same. So he would like his stay to go beyond 2025, but it all depends on how things shape up within Pakistan and how the military-civil equations go on. Still a lot of time to go. We have seen the developments in Pakistan post February 8 elections, which were, everybody knows, were hugely rigged in favor of Shehbaz Sharif and his party, or the Nawaz Sharif and his party. So he is unable to get Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf in control. That is causing a concern, because even in this meeting where what I was talking about, the Chinese delegation, he somehow managed their presence there, but 2 days later they said that we are not part of any Azm-e-Istikam operation, not at all. They said that we are, till it comes to parliament, there is a briefing in parliament, discussion in parliament, till then we are not in it. So he is not able to get Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf around him. Then he has not been able to successfully break it. He has not been successful in doing the manipulation that he thought would be easy as happened in the history of Pakistan earlier. So with these all handicaps, he is tied in a difficult position. But then all military dictators find themselves in that condition. The problem is, right now, Shehbaz Sharif can't afford to lose him. He has to hold on to apparent strings of Asim Munir. So he'll do what Asim Munir says. The moment Asim Munir moves away from Shehbaz, the whole government of Pakistan collapses. The present government collapses. There is absolutely no chance of Shehbaz Sharif surviving as the Prime Minister. not at all.
No chance of, Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif surviving. And the man at the center, as you mentioned, Mr. Morani, is General Asim Munir, who the man, given a chance, would like to continue for eternity. But guiding his actions in the recent months has been the C factor. That's China and the CPEC, where he's launched yet another counter-terrorist operation to tackle them. But as Mr. Morani pointed out, it is the I factor that's the elephant in the room, the Imran Khan factor, and the PTI that's actually going to hang on his tenure and will actually determine whether he, successfully ends it in 2025 or seeks some more time until 2028, or who knows, even beyond that. But thank you very much. That's a discussion for another day. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us this evening on Pakistan's three-front war and General Asim Munir, the man in the middle. Thanks for joining us, Mr. Morani, and my colleague Aditya Rajkaul. In 2009, then Prime Minister Manmohan Singh called the Maoists India's greatest internal security threat. There were then over 100 districts across 6 states where the Maoists operated with impunity. Today, they're just confined to a dozen districts. And from a red corridor, what it once was 20 years back, the Maoists have now been confined to a cul-de-sac or a dead end. Over 600 Maoists have surrendered to the Maharashtra police in recent months, including some high-profile office bearers. In Chhattisgarh, over 125 Maoists were killed this year alone. Over 300 were arrested in this period. The Maoists are now confined to the Abujmad region, a 5,000 square kilometer region, a little bigger than the state of Goa. The 5 big questions we are asking on the News9 Plus show today. Home Minister Amit Shah said in May this year that the Maoists would be wiped out in 2 to 3 years, that is by 2027. Is this a realistic goal? Number 2, Maoists have demonstrated a capacity to bounce back in the past. Is it too early to pronounce mission accomplished? Question number 3, can surrenders by the Maoist cadre indicate that the movement is flagging? Number 4, will capturing the Maoist leadership end the problem without bloodshed? And finally, question number 5, what will the end of Maoism look like? Will it be when the security forces have finally entered the forbidden zone, Abujmad? Joining me to discuss this today are Nirmal Kaur, former DG Police Jharkhand, and Shubhranshu Chaudhary, peace activist, and my colleague Deepak Badana in the studio here with me. I want to start by asking DGP Nirmal Kaur. Ma'am, the Home Minister Amit Shah said 3 years to the end of Maoism. We've heard that in the past as well, where deadlines were given that, Maoism was on its last legs. It was only a matter of time, a few months, a few years. What leads you to believe that this time, this is literally the last stand for the Maoists, that they don't have very much time and they're running out of space as well?
Now the operation against Maoists, the Naxal, anti-Naxal operations have been really taken up a lot and many notches higher. And there's a multi-pronged strategy approach to the problem. Earlier it was seen only as a police or a combat problem. It is not only a combat problem, it is also a problem of development, it is a problem of accessibility, it's a problem of providing primary education, primary health care, road connectivity, justice, many things to the population living in far-off area, not very well off. They don't have much money, but they are all people who want to live with dignity. They're very proud people. They don't want to be mowed down by the government machinery as it is, the impersonal administrative machinery, which doesn't give value to the citizen. So all these things were instrumental in the rise of Naxalism, and now all these problems are being addressed. So one thinks, and there have been many successes also in the recent past. So one is hoping that with all this new, the special security-related expenditure, reaching out to the citizens, providing development, there's many people are swayed by these, especially the youngsters, the romantic ideas of a revolution. So they are being asked to issue violence. They are being made to see that it is not the correct path. If they want to, change the nation, they should join mainstream politics. So all this, and plus the people who leave that There have to be some alternative for them, like skill development, some mainstream employment, mainstream, a way to live with dignity. They work hard, they earn their own money, and they live like good citizens, which they are basically, but misled. So I feel, that because of this multi-pronged approach, the strategy which has been appointed, in which many ministries are involved, not only home, women and child ministry, development, the connection, this telecom, mobile tower project is there, which has enhanced connectivity. There are many schemes, at least 30, 40, Ajivika mission, the ideal district program, the adopt a district program. There are many such things, which have come together, which have been focused on in Excel areas, and now they're shrinking in size. And one is hoping that they will finish very soon. Abujmar, as you said, Abujmar is an area which is very inaccessible, and Abujmar people are very simple people. In fact, I cannot stop talking of my visit to Narayanpur, which is in Bastar, erstwhile Bastar. What was Bastar is today 8 districts. Narayanpur is one of those districts.
Yes.
In Narayanpur, at the edge of Narayanpur, the hills start. Hills are where those that Abujmar area is. Abuj means Abuj. Buj nahi sakte aap.
Yes.
Mar is the hills, the plateaued hills, gentle hills. So Abuj Mar, as the name suggests, it's a very poor area. People don't even know the language they know neither Hindi nor English. They have their own language, which is, they speak amongst themselves. And at the edge of Narayanpur, Ramakrishna Mission Swamis, headed by Swami Vyaptananda, they are running a school for Abuj Mar children only. If you go to that school, you will realize how simple those people are.
Yes.
How they want to work hard. These children are winning all the trophies. They are working hard. You see their discipline. You see from 5-year-old girl, it's a co-ed school, to 18, 19-year-old boys plus 2 boys. They're all living together, not a single discipline problem.
Right. Absolutely.
They are there.
Thanks. So that point is well made. The fact that the hearts and minds approach is now working, and it's an all of government approach and not just a security solution, as you correctly pointed out, and that could be yielding dividends now. But Subhranshu, there have been a lot of surrenders of Maoist cadre in recent months. There have been a number of encounters as well where Maoists have been killed. What leads you to believe that the movement is on its last legs? Do you believe that that's the case, looking at numbers, or is there another story to this?
It is not new story. The surrender started post 2014-15 in local Adivasi. I always say it's not a Maoist problem what we are dealing with. Maoist is only 1% of the problem. The problem is what we just call heart and mind, the 99%. 1% never become what you talked about, Manmohan Singh called India's worst internal security threat, unless lots of people join. And we need to understand why these 99% people, as Madam Kaur said, they were misled. Why were they misled? What are the reasons they joined? Maybe it will be the end of the Maoist problem, but there can be Raoult's problem coming next, when somebody else will come and they will say the same thing. आपके लिए इस सिस्टम में कुछ भी नहीं है, आपको कुछ नहीं मिलेगा, आपको सिर्फ बंदूक उठाना है, तभी कुछ मिलेगा. So this is an opportunity when we can work for this 99% of the problem. 1% is a problem, it's an ideological problem, it's a political problem. These 99%, they're looking for constitution. 75 plus years, Indian constitution gives lots of things to these people. Madam Kaur was talking about from Abujmar. She talked about Abujmar. When I talk to people from Abujmar, and they start from the name. Abuj is a Gondi, it means Tal, and Mar means forest. It means the forest of Tal. We, from our Hindi Chashma, we call it Abuj, which we cannot understand.
Deepak, very quickly, the Maoists have been around for about 2 decades in their present form. There have been a number of, peaks and troughs in their operations. Is there anything now that suggests that they are literally running out of time and space, given the intensity of the recent encounters and the number of surrendered Maoists that we've seen in recent months, and the fact that they're literally out of space now?
So, see, the battle against the Maoists was led on several fronts.
Yes.
While most people will acknowledge the role played by our security forces, there's another element and a much more useful tool that the government of India has employed. Now, for instance, this year, the village of the most dreaded Maoist in India, Hiten Madhvi, his village now has roads, it's got electricity for the first time in 60, 70 years. So when you look at the masses of Maoists who are surrendering, it's not just the fear of the security forces, it's also the realization that armed resistance is futile and in fact unnecessary. And that there are better alternatives for these people. I think that is one of the key reasons that we see a number of Maoists who are coming out of the extreme fringe and they're joining the mainstream.
Yes. The futility of armed resistance, but armed resistance is something that the DGP would speak about. I'm going to ask her about this. Ma'am, the ideology of Maoism, it's a very violent ideology, as Deepak pointed out. It's about overthrowing the state using violence. Is it possible that you could, the Indian state could reach out to the Maoist leadership, as you did very successfully in Mizoram in 1986, possibly the only insurgency that ended with a stroke of a pen, as they say. A 20-year insurgency was ended when the entire Mizo underground leadership came out and surrendered. Do you see anything like that being possible in Chhattisgarh, in Abujmad, where the Maoist leadership are believed to be holed up?
I think it's very much possible, but for the support and encouragement and backing kind of being provided by the urban Naxal groups. The urban Naxal groups are very, very dangerous. They provide the, you can say the backup, the money. Now with FCRA, which the government has brought about, which was already there, but they are implementing it strictly. Their funding has been restricted. Lots of things are happening, recently they were discovered with a printing machine, a note printing machine. Camp was raided and the police found, security forces found a note printing machine. That means they are really, they are choked for funds. They are printing notes like 20 rupees, 200 rupees, short denomination notes. They are printing in a very juvenile kind of a way with a common printer, which can be easily caught. But wo jo local haat bazaar hai wahan lagte, they are trying to run that currency over there. 20 rupees, 50 rupees, 100 rupees, 200 rupees, small denomination notes. And but the local populace doesn't know that they are not genuine notes, that they are counterfeit notes, and they are trying to run them in the local hearts. That means their funding is really restricted now.
The funding is really restricted, yes.
That is maybe the reason they have come to, printing their own notes. In last week only, within the last 3-4 days, some camp was raided and they found a note printing with all various inks and printing paper and a printing printer.
Yes.
A very, very raw kind of an attempt, not a very sophisticated attempt. But in the villages, who knows what is genuine? If you want to know whether a note is counterfeit, you'll need at least the RBI or SPCM CIL people, the Security Printing and Mint Corporation of India Limited people, to say whether it's genuine or not. In the villages, they are running these notes. They are able to, give it to the poor villagers and run it in the local hearts, the local weekly markets. So that is the thing, and I feel that it's very much possible to sign away if the urban nexus could be somehow, removed from the scene. But I don't know how to do that.
So urban nexus are a problem, and I'm sure this is something that the government has mentioned as well. The fact that the overground workers that are keeping the movement alive and kicking. Shubhranshu, you run a radio network. Tell us if it is actually possible to reach out to the Maoist leadership and convince them to surrender, end the bloodshed, because this is actually going on for 20 years now, and as we were discussing, they seem to be running out of time, out of space. Is it possible for the Maoist leadership to kind of finally realize that, look, they're not going to get that violent revolution that they call for? The overthrow of the state is not going to happen, not by 2049, not earlier, not later. Is it possible for us to talk to them and get them to surrender, emerge out of the jungle and be rehabilitated, just the way the Mizo insurgency was in 1986.
Absolutely. This is more than 10 years ago when I went to meet some Maoist leaders as a journalist we have access to.
Yes.
And exactly what you said in a different language that Maoist leader told me, the best we can achieve in current situation is implementation of pro-tribal laws in Indian constitution. And
Right.
if you are following Chhattisgarh,
Yes.
Maoists are exactly doing that experiment from last 3 years. They call it Sanyukta Morcha. They call it United Front. The same experiment brought peace to Nepal. And yes, both sides are killing now. And that's what we want to stop. But Maoists have created these fronts. These are legal fronts where they're demanding legal things.
Right.
So, as in Nepal, they demanded when they realized that revolution is not possible in
Yes.
Nepal, they demanded two things. Number one, Loktantra, democracy,
Yes.
and Dharm Nirpeksh. And they got
Secularism.
both
Yes.
after secularism, after the talks. Here, all these fronts, it is called Mulwasi Bachao Manch, and
Yes.
sitting in every places and demanding implementation of these laws which are sitting in what we call constitution from 75 years.
Right.
But nobody's talking to them. So if there is a will, we will have to look at what has happened, how it has happened in other places, and do it. Not much is happening from the government side. It is more than 3 years Maoists are doing this experiment, but neither there is much understanding or an effort to resolve the problem.
No effort to resolve the problem. Forest dwellers' rights, Deepak, are an issue we've been talking about earlier today. We were talking about how the tribals could actually, they need to be rehabilitated. Their rights need to be looked after. Do you think that could be a solution, possibly, of taking away the cadres of the Maoists? Because the Maoists are external to Chhattisgarh and to the region. They are the officer cadre, if you can call it like that. The foot soldiers are all tribal. As Subhranshu was saying, that there are these laws that could actually benefit the tribals, and if that's the case, the movement could actually end. The violent part of it.
I think that goes without saying. I think, I believe it's a law of military science that
Yes.
no insurgency can exist without local support.
Yes.
So as soon as you have the populace with you, you'll find this Maoist movement evaporating into thin air. I think that is something that the government of India, and in fact, the government of India has been focusing on that. So when I talked of the other element besides force, we're talking about education and development.
Yes.
This is targeting the Adivasi population.
This is targeting the Adivasi population, and indeed this is one different way that we are suggesting to end the Maoist insurgency, which is with less bloodshed and possibly talks, bringing the Maoist leadership out of their jungle hideouts, as has been done in the past in the Mizoram movement. 20 years they fought, and finally it was resolved through the signing of the Mizo Accord, and that's possibly something that the government could look at. Avoid bloodshed, avoid a lot of innocents being caught in the crossfire, but that's a story that we'll be looking at closely, because the Maoist insurgency, from being one of the biggest threats to India's internal security, has now become a fringe issue, but it's worrying all the same. Thank you very much for joining us this evening, DGP Nirmal Kaur, Subhranshu Chaudhary, and my colleague Deepak Padana. Pakistani terrorists are active in Jammu after several years. They've staged 3 attacks in 3 days. We spoke with counter-terrorist expert Dr. Ajay Sahni to understand Pakistan's new game plan in Jammu. Let's watch.
Look, it's very, very natural. When you have an adversary who is being squeezed in one territory, he will seek some other territories to operate in. They are not giving up. Certainly not the Pakistanis and those who are operating from across the border. They haven't given up. They do have a very small support base surviving even in Jammu Kashmir. So the movement towards Jammu is very natural. There was over the past years a significant thinning out of force in the Jammu region, because it was settled, because this is, it's part of what we call the security dilemma. The more successful the forces are, the less they get. Immediately you will recall over the past years there have been so many calls that get the army out of Kashmir, get the central forces out of Kashmir, everything is almost normal, why do you need so much force? So this kind of a premature withdrawal, also withdrawals for other reasons, for instance the Ladakh incidents with China occurred, the army was required more urgently there. So their gaps have developed in what was a fairly effective grid in the Jammu region. The other side is seeing this. So they are taking advantage of this because they are unable to operate with the same level of effectiveness or freedom in the valley. Now as far as surges are concerned, there is absolutely no surge. Let me just take from January this year to the 12th or 13th of June this year, including these incidents. The total fatalities in Jammu Kashmir all told were 32. In the same period last year, there were 39 fatalities. So where is the surge? What do you mean by a surge? You have to have a baseline. Are you comparing with last year? Are you comparing it with the peak of insurgency, when in a single year you had 4,000 fatalities, which 4,011 fatalities if I remember correctly in 2001, which works out to 11 fatalities a day, which is the total number of fatalities in the 3 days, 4 days between the 9th and the 12th. You had 11 fatalities. You used to have on the average 11 fatalities every day in 2001. So what do you mean by a surge? Look, the lowest point we reached was in 2012 with 121 fatalities. After that we have never returned to 121 fatalities. Last year was 134. So we are still above the 121 fatalities before that. There was a year, for instance, they went up to about 461 or something after this government took over in 2014. There was an escalation. Then there was Article 370, that phase where the entire state was virtually locked down for more than 6 months. Nobody could move anywhere, so neither could the terrorists, very obviously. So there was some decline, but it still did not come down to the previous low, anywhere close to the previous low. In fact, the 134 last year is the lowest figure that has been secured after 2013. So show me how Pakistan has, there's been a decline in Pakistan's efforts. There's been a continuous decline in Pakistan's efforts in 2001. And that is because of global pressure, that is because of Pakistan's internal difficulties. But they have still not given up. At least the desire to keep this movement alive, even at a minimal sustainable level, that somehow or the other, by some accident of circumstances, new opportunities may arise. And then they should still have some presence there, some support base there, so that they can then escalate. But none of these things, 5 people killed here, 10 people killed there, this has been happening fairly regularly. 42 people killed in single incidents. It happens and then it passes, it happens and then it passes. If nothing happens for 2 months, we start saying, oh, Kashmir is, say, tourism figures and economy is thriving and government is doing so well, etc., etc. Then 6 people get killed and we say, oh, Pakistan is doing terrible things. Look, basically Kashmiri separatism, for any armed movement, and this is something Edmund Burke said very long ago, that these are armed ideologies, and an armed ideology has to be defeated before it can be discredited. I believe that very substantially this movement has been defeated in Jammu and Kashmir, despite the occasional frisson of activity. By and large, the Kashmiri people have accepted that this cannot succeed. By and large, despite the fact that they may have surviving aspirations for Azadi, they have realized that they have been used by Pakistan. So they are not so eager to once again put themselves at the mercy of the Pakistani ISI. So it is, to my mind, a manageable problem now. With any insurgency, and you can see this in other parts of the country, even very virulent insurgencies, once the forces have brought it down to a certain level, and I believe that level has been well and truly reached not only in Jammu and Kashmir, but also in the Maoist belt, it is critical to take this to the political plane. You have got to give at least the larger mass of people who may not have magically been transformed into Indian patriots, but who have come to terms with the fact that they must make their peace and live within India. You must give them, and that is a very large majority. That has been a substantial majority all through this. They didn't have a voice. Otherwise, if these forces did not exist, no political party would have, whether it is PC, whether it is the Congress, whether it is the PDP, they could not have functioned. So, if they have a leadership there, that meant that there were people who were willing to live within the constitutional system. Those people are still there and their numbers are growing. We have come to a stage where it is no longer a threat to India's security. It is now time to secure political solutions domestically. By political solution, I don't mean go and let's start talking to Pakistan. I am not interested. I have always opposed talks with Pakistan until Pakistan throws away every last terrorist proxy that it has. Then maybe you can talk to them, and what you would talk to them about, I don't know. But till that happens, you have got to do this. Look, please understand, we have won against foreign backed insurgents already more than once. It happened in Punjab, it certainly happened in Tripura. Most of the northeastern groups had a base and support outside, whether it be in Myanmar or in Bangladesh or in East Pakistan before that. Mizoram was a result. After the security forces have brought the violence, contained the violence to a certain level, and we are well below that level now, it is then in the hands of the politicians whether the problem is going to be resolved, and it has to be resolved domestically. I am not interested in talks with Pakistan.